Report Preview Edition. I am Drew Martin, joined as always by Teddy Covers, getting you ready for the NFL season, guys. We got the AFC and NFC West division previews coming your way. But without further ado, TC, welcome on in. Happy Monday morning to you, buddy.
Hey, great to be here, Drew. And it's always good to talk football in June. Why are we talking football now? The early bird gets the worm. That's why. You know, what's the difference between a pro bettor and a casual bettor? A casual bettor is going to start to look at this stuff Labor Day, maybe the beginning of preseason. A pro bettor is going to take advantage of this stuff in May and June and into July when the odds are what they are and the markets haven't really been flushed into place yet. So we'll pay a lot of attention to the NFL this month. Obviously, we did the first preview last week with the AFC and NFC East. We're doing the AFC and NFC West this week. Next Monday, we do the North divisions, and the following Monday, we do the South divisions, all leading up to the release of my NFL season win report on July 2nd, a Wednesday. And yeah, I already got that day circled, Drew. We work on it every day right now because that report's been, obviously 103 and 52 in the lifetime of the report, 17 and 4 with the big tickets. It's a report the clients look forward to. It's a report I look forward to, but it takes a lot of work. That's why we're doing it right now in June. So let's roll, baby.
All right, guys, starting it off here, we got the AFC West up first, and we're going to talk the Denver Broncos, playoff team last year, finishing 10-7, 11-6, trending towards the over, and a great team to bet on, 12-5 against the spread. So, Teddy, I'll throw it over to you. Young quarterback, I guess athletic quarterback, and hey, pretty good season last year. Do you think they can carry it over to 2025, a mile high? What are we thinking Denver Broncos, TC?
So before I get into Denver, let me just talk about some very basics as we analyze these teams right now. AFC teams have an edge over NFC teams this year when it comes to having higher win totals. Why? AFC teams get 9 home games versus 8 road games. NFC teams, 8 home games versus 9 road games. And it's not a huge difference, but it does mean that in general, would be more likely to play AFC teams over their win total and NFC teams under their win total. When it comes to who plays who in divisions, the AFC West plays the AFC South and the NFC East, the 2 divisions that they face off against this year. And when we get into schedules, we'll talk about each one and the nuances for each team. The NFC West is going to face the AFC South and the NFC South, arguably 2 of the weakest divisions in the league. So advantage NFC West teams when it comes to strength of schedule this year, even though they have only 8 home games compared to 9 road games. There's one other thing I want to talk about at the top, and this is data from Ralph Michaels, again, at Cal Sports LV on Twitter. And Ralph's, long-term database stuff is so strong, I want to share it when I get it. And these are 2 issues when you talk about the highest teams and the lowest teams. Win totals in the NFL of 10 or higher since 2015. 16 cashes on overs in 51 tries. 16, 28, and 7 pushes. So the highest win totals, not been good bets to go over the total, so 10 plus. The lowest win totals of 5.5 or lower, 7 cashes on overs in 22 tries during that span. 7, 12, and 3 to the under. So the highest teams and the lowest teams when it comes to totals over the last decade have not been good for over bettors. They've both been good for under bettors. So 2 things worth noting at the top. Now, let's talk about the Denver Broncos. Currently lined, I'm seeing mostly, there's 9s and 9.5s for Denver out there in the betting marketplace right now. 9 being the prevailing number, but there are certainly 9.5s out there. A team that made some interesting win now moves this offseason. But we talk about their starting point. Last year, they were lined as a 6-win team. They went 10-7. The year before, lined as an 8.5-win team. They finished 8-9. 5-12 the year before that. 7-10 the year before that. 5-11 before that. 7-9 back in 2019. So this recent improvement for Denver is recent. The franchise was not in great shape pre-Sean Payton. And, of course, there's good continuity under Payton. Again, 8-9, then 10-7 last year with the rookie QB and Bo Nix. He's now in his 3rd year on the job. Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator, 3rd year on the job. Vance Joseph, defense coordinator, third year on the job. Continuity. Peyton picked the right guys. He picked his guys. And obviously, they've all stuck around. So that's a positive for Denver when you look at the arrow pointed upward. Last year, rookie QB, can't be shocked for a team that went 10-7. They went 1-5 in one-score games a year ago. So that's an area where you would expect at least some improvement this year. Denver near the bottom of the one-score game category a year ago. Now, two things that happened last year that aren't necessarily going to happen this year. One, they were very healthy last year. They were tied, I think, second in the league for the fewest guys playing in games. Meaning not necessarily fewest guys lost to injury, but it wasn't like they had to play 80 guys during the course of the season. So they were fairly healthy last year. And also last year, notably easier than average schedule. Top quartile based on my powering numbers when it came to the easier schedules in the league. So the way I do strength of schedule is not the standard way. I use my powering numbers the week the game was played. And I find that to be a really valuable tool as I break down these teams, because I'm not looking at any mainstream numbers. I'm not looking at what the record was at the end of the season. I'm looking at where was this team, how good was their opponent the week they played them. And you add them up, you figure out some pretty good strength of schedule differences. So Denver faced a relatively easy schedule last year. Now, the Broncos came into the offseason where they had $32 million in dead money remaining from Russell Wilson's contract. So they still had salary cap issues from Wilson. So it wasn't like they could go crazy in free agency. That being said, a couple of big moves, if the guys can stay healthy in that regard. Drake Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga from San Francisco, the linebacker and the safety. And they're big moves. These are two guys who have played for titles. And the tight end, Evan Ingram, is supposed to be an impact player for this offense, especially when we're talking about a young QB in Bo Nix. They re-signed DJ Jones. That was the big re-signing in the offseason at defensive tackle. And, of course, in the draft, they went cornerback, running back, wide receiver with their first three picks. Cornerback Jahadi Barron out of Texas gives them a secondary that looks really good on paper. A couple of edge rushers as well from LSU and Alabama, Robinson and Jones in the third and fourth round that could have an impact for them. Now, and I like the running back, R.J. Harvey as well, the kid out of UCF. They went into the draft with issues at running back, receiver, and cornerback, and that was their first three picks, running back, receiver, and cornerback. So they did, I think, a pretty good job of filling their roster needs. When it comes to the schedule this year, again, AFC West teams play AFC South and NFC East. Denver's three extra games, Cincinnati, Green Bay, and the Jets. So mediocre when it comes to how tough it is. They got a chance for a good start. They got the Giants, the Jets, the Colts, and the Titans all in the first 7 weeks of the season. The closeout for Denver is kind of tough. KC, at Washington, at Vegas, Green Bay, Jacksonville, at KC, and the Chargers. So there's a chance this team could get off to a hot start and then stumble a little bit down the stretch. That would be a concern if I like Denver over their win total. But in general, arrows pointed upwards for the Broncos, even though I do have some concerns. And they're certainly not being priced as a mediocre team. They're being priced as a playoff contender in the marketplace for 2025.
TC is ready to go early on a Monday. Jam-packed analysis there on the first team. And I'll second one thing, guys. A quick hot take off the top. Teddy talked about the strength of schedule and his numbers. I will say this. He gave himself a little bit of a boost. I'm going to give you more of a boost, TC. You do bring a lot of other good analysis, but I love hearing that. Like what week they played them, who was injured. And when you throw out your numbers, guys, if you're new to betting the NFL, you can kind of get a huge advantage. I've used that in my handicapping. So I definitely tune in when Teddy brings up his personal strength of schedule, because that's kind of like proprietary information that you can get an advantage, in my opinion, in the betting market. So Teddy, I wanted to throw that out for you. But getting back to the teams here, we got next team up, Kansas City Chiefs, of course, winning the AFC West 15-2 last year, although just 8-9 against the spread. You might remember towards the middle of the season, it was really a rough stretch against the spread for the Chiefs, slightly under trenders. And of course, I got to bring up Super Bowl losers last season. So Teddy, I'll bring it up. Teddy, Kansas City Chiefs 2025 team preview here.
Yeah, Chiefs lined at pretty much 11.5 is the prevailing number. A little bit of juice to the under at some books for Kansas City. And again, if you want to talk about a coach who you're going to lose money betting against when it comes to under season wins, Andy Reid in Philadelphia, and he was in Philadelphia from 99 to 2012. This guy's been a head coach forever. My entire time in Vegas, Andy Reid's been a head coach. And in Philadelphia, I think each of his last 10 years, he had a winning, he went over the win total. Look at what he's doing in Kansas City. Again, they were 11-5 last year, or lined at 11.5 wins last year. They went 15-2. They were lined at 11.5 the year before. They went 11-6, either lose by a half game or push. 14-3 the year before that, 12-5 before that, 14-2, 12-4. Hard to play unders with Andy Reid teams. Andy Reid's the most success. He's when it comes to regular season success, he's second to none in the modern era. And obviously now in his 13th season in Kansas City, Matt Nagy's back as the OC. Spags is back as 7th year as a defense coordinator. You talk about their point spread failures last year. And of course, KC went 11-0. 11-0 in one-score games. And when you're playing in Super Bowls every year, the most public team in the league, et cetera, and you're playing 11 one-score games, you ain't covering those spreads, or a lot of them. And certainly that was the case for KC. A lot of more, I believe they had the most win/no covers than any team in the league. Before I talk about some of the additions and subtractions in the offseason, I do want to ask for one simple favor for you guys. If you like this type of analysis, just give me a thumbs up. Boom, click right now. Done. Problem solved. Thank you. If you want to comment below, we appreciate all the comments, and both Drew and I get in the comment section and answer them multiple times during the week. And of course, if you haven't done so already, what do we got? 200,000 plus have now signed up for the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Do that now if you're interested in getting instant alerts every time these videos go live, like they do every Monday right now, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 Eastern. For Kansas City, additions, not much. I mean, this is a team that has significant salary cap issues. When you restructure Patrick Mahomes for a $450 million deal, that restructured Chris Jones with a $158 million deal, re-signed Nick Bolton, re-signed Trey Smith, all big money deals. There's depth issues for Kansas City right now, and there's offensive line issues for Kansas City as well. You lose Joe Thuney, obviously, Tershawn Watton, Justin Reed, a couple of key defensive bodies for Spags and Reed. But in general, this team has done a good job of avoiding roster holes. And they did again this year. I mean, you look at the draft, Josh Simmons, the offense from Ohio State with the first-round pick, defensive tackle Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee, the edge rusher out of Louisville, Jalot with the first 3 picks, Noel Williams, the cornerback. And Royals, the receiver out of Utah State. It could be an interesting factor for KC, top 5 picks. I thought they drafted to need fairly well. But I've got concerns about Kansas City when it comes to defensive depth chart. Again, this is not a team with salary cap room. This is not a team that can withstand a whole lot of injuries. I've got every bit as big concerns about the Chiefs' offensive line. I mean, I could go through, I got all this stuff written here. I don't have time to go through it all. But there are significant questions about both the offensive line, the starters, and the depth behind those starters. And of course, last year, they were, when it came to receiving core, it was like Xavier Worthy and who else? They brought back Juju Smith-Schuster. They brought back Hollywood Brown. But the key is kind of like Rashee Rice and Sky Moore, 2 guys who missed last year with injury and other issues. If those 2 can come back and be legit weapons for Kansas City, and the offensive line can hold up for Patrick Mahomes, this team's likely to be every bit as good as they've been in recent years. But there's more questions about the Chiefs. Again, OL questions, wide receiver questions, depth questions, defensive questions. And if this team has some injuries, there could be issues this year, even though Andy Reid's track record when it comes to win totals. I don't play him under. The schedule for Kansas City, AFC West versus AFC South and NFC East, 3 extra games for KC. Baltimore, Detroit, Buffalo. Ouch. That's tough. And of course, you look at the schedule for the Chiefs, it's a little bit front-loaded. The Chargers, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Lions, all in the first 6 weeks, and Washington and Buffalo before the Week 10 bye. Don't be surprised if Kansas City doesn't get off to a great start in 2025.
Teddy, next team up, we got the bottom of the division last year. We got the AFC West, Las Vegas Raiders, 4-13, 7-10 against the spread, 9-8 slight over trenders. Tough year on the desert, but Las Vegas Raiders, you think they can bounce back here off the 4-13 season?
I mean, the Raiders have been bad for a long time. All right, 4-11 last year. They were aligned to the 6.5 win team. 8-9 the year before. 6-11, stayed under the win total that year by a couple of wins. You know, they had the one good year, what was it, in 2001, but they went 10-7, but 8-8 before that, 7-9 before that. It's been mediocre or worse for Vegas. What, since Rich Gannon retired? I mean, it feels like the Raiders, it's been 20-something years of futility for Vegas. And you look at their win total this year, mostly 6.5s out there. There are some 7s with juice, and they've taken over money so far. And I understand why they've taken over money. There's a couple of reasons that really point towards not an elite season for Vegas, but a better season than last year for Vegas. Obviously, they were -16 in turnover differential last year. Only Cleveland was worse. -16 is a lot when it comes to turnover differential. Vegas recovered only 24% of the fumbles that hit the ground last season, 8 of 33. That's the worst recovery rate of any team since 2011. All right. They were healthier than the average team last year, but they had only 4 players start all 17 games. And the guys that got hurt for Vegas last year were like their best players. It wasn't like they were losing guys at the back end of the roster. You know, Christian Wilkins got hurt, Max Crosby got hurt, Nate Hobbs got hurt, you know. Now, you bring in Pete Carroll, you bring in Chip Kelly, you bring in Patrick Graham, the defense coordinator, is back for his 4th season, but you bring in Geno Smith, and all of a sudden a team with a head coach question mark and quarterback question mark doesn't have that. They've got a quarterback, an established quarterback, a veteran quarterback. They have a head coach who's won everywhere he's been. Those are positives when it comes to the floor for the Raiders. And again, you know, they lose Mooring on defense and Spillane on defense and Hobbs. They have some holes to fill, but their starting quarterback is set. Their coach is set. And, you know, here's a quote from the GM. Our expectation is we want people to be here. We want people, once they get here, to want to stay here. A lot of character guys they signed in free agency, really. And I thought that's a positive, you know, for a team that, let's face it, you know, when it comes to culture, Vegas has been at the bottom of the NFL for quite some time. So the biggest takeaway that I have for the Raiders off, and again, I asked Njonti from Boise State with your top pick. That's a win now pick, you know. Everything that I see from the Raiders, Jack Betch, the number 2 pick, and then, you know, loaded up in the 3rd round, 2 offensive linemen and a cornerback. I feel like the Raiders this offseason, their ceiling isn't very high, but their floor is much higher than it's been. The moves they made this offseason are not, hey, we're going to win the Super Bowl moves. It's, hey, we're tired of being a last place team moves. And that's meaningful. That's why they're taking over money. Their floor is higher than it was. And again, when you swap out Antonio Pierce for Pete Carroll, when you swap out Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew for Geno Smith, those are upgrades. Now, there are some negatives for the Raiders, some significant negatives. They have the single worst net rest disadvantage in the NFL. Somehow, some way, the league always finds a way to screw the Raiders. Minus 19 days in net rest disadvantage. Put that in perspective, only 3 teams are worse than -7 when it comes to net rest disadvantage. So week after week, the Raiders are playing, you know, they're on a short week, their opponent isn't. Their opponent's off a bye, they're not. But there was only 3 teams worse than -7. The Saints, the Commanders are the other 2. The Raiders dead last when it comes to net disadvantage for rest. AFC West versus AFC East. AFC West versus AFC South and NFC East opponents this week. The 3 extra games for Vegas. Patriots, Bears, Browns. Patriots and Bears are supposed to be better. Whether they will be is another question. Browns, not so much, but not impossible to win games. And they do have lots of winnable home games. You know, look at them down the stretch. Chicago, Tennessee, Jacksonville, Dallas, Cleveland, the Giants. Those are winnable home games. That being said, How much home field edge do the Raiders have? Well, they went 2-6 on this field last year, straight up. So the home field edge for the Raiders has not been as good as it's cracked up to be. And of course, you're talking about a destination location and a team that doesn't have a ton of season ticket holders. You put those two factors together, and just about every opponent that comes to Allegiant Stadium has had significant crowd support. The Raiders, yeah, they have crowd support, but it's not one of these stadiums that they're the only team that's getting crowd support game in and game out.
Teddy, like the breakdown, man. And guys, any questions, fire away in the comments. I know it's June, we're talking the NFL, but we haven't had many comments, questions, the first couple shows here. So we'd love to have some. We'll answer them on the show. But Teddy, just to give you a break, because you're doing some great analysis on these teams, man. My notepad is full here. In terms of the home field advantage, you're there in Las Vegas. I know we're doing the show for the sports bettors, but I guess it could have an impact on betting the Raiders. Do you think the home field advantage, in your opinion, is due to Las Vegas in general, or do you think it's because the team hasn't been that great, therefore people aren't showing up? If you had to choose kind of one or the other, where do you think it falls on the spectrum? Like if they had a better team, would they have a better home field advantage? And how much would that be?
Yes, if they had a better team. I mean, Vegas is a front runner town, Okay. We want that being said, opponents plan trips to Vegas based on the weekend that their team's playing. When Cleveland comes out here, it's going to be all that stadium will be full of Browns fans. All right. If the Raiders were better, fewer people might sell their tickets on the resale market,
Sure.
I guess. But I think there will the fact that this is a destination location almost ensures that the Raiders' opponents will always have some crowd support, or will generally have some crowd support. And I would say, the NFL in general doesn't have a big home field edge anymore. If you're pricing it at more than 2.5 points at the most, I would never price it more than 2.5. I mean, 2.5. You can make an argument it's 1.5. And the Raiders would be in the 1.5 category for how much I'm going to adjust for home field. There's not a huge edge in that regard.
Okay. And for just for college football, how high would you go with home field advantage?
Some of them are worth, Penn State whiteout games worth 5 or 6,
Okay.
But I also, over the years, my home field edge across sports, less and less and less and less, Mm-hmm. And really 5 or 6 in my mind is a lot for college. There's not a lot of teams and even in the modern era, I'd hesitate to go above 4.
All right, Teddy. Well, we got next team up here in the AFC West. We got the LA Chargers, of course, a playoff team last year, 11-6 straight up. Great team to bet on. I'm seeing 12-5 against the spread, slight under trenders, 8-9 towards the under. So we got I almost said San Diego Chargers, by the way, Teddy. I mean, it is June and we're talking NFL. I don't know how many years it's been, but for some reason that city and this team kind of stick in my mind. But we got the Chargers of Los Angeles next team up.
Sure. I almost said the Oakland Raiders. So we're even. And I saw something pop on the screen. I don't know if you're someone asking me about defensive player of the year odds. All right. Thank you, Parlay in Vegas. There are bad bets and there are miserable bets. When you have 50 guys or 100 guy listed and you're trying to pick the one, good luck. Good luck. I don't bet those kind of futures. Never. And if I did, I'd only be looking at what I would consider to be a very live long shot. 100 to 1, 150 to 1, 200 to 1, someone who doesn't deserve to be priced in that range. But those bets don't win. And there's no way to hedge it at the end of the season. There's no, it's very difficult to pick that needle out of the haystack. Just ask anyone who's betting golf. All right. Golf, the guys that make money are betting top 10s, they're betting top 20s, they're betting the matchups. But you don't get any of that for defensive rookie of the year or offensive rookie of the year. So it's not a bet that I would make. It's not a bet that I would recommend anyone would make. It's a losing ROI on that type of wager, in my opinion. So I'm sorry I can't give you a recommendation. It's not a bet I would even consider. Now, let's talk about the LA Chargers since 2019. Well, they went 11-6 last year. Lions is a 9-win team. Prior to that, 5-12, 10-7, 9-8, 7-9, 5-11. They've been largely mediocre. Last year, they were pretty good. They were a playoff team. Jim Harbaugh in his second season on the job. Greg Roman back to the offense coordinator. Jesse Minter back to the defense coordinator. We like the first-year head coach whose coordinators both come back. It means he picked the right guys. And, of course, this year, LA lined pretty much 9.5 across the board, pretty close to minus 110 either way. Last year for LA, a couple things really worked in their favor. Plus 12 turnover margin. Only Buffalo and Pittsburgh were better in that regard. So they were on the right side of the turnovers. And strength of schedule last year, much easier than average based on my numbers. I had them with the bottom 4 schedule, strength of schedule out of 32 teams. So they faced a lot of the right teams at the right time last year, and they finished with the plus 12 turnover margin. So both those things worked in their favor in that regard, and either guaranteed to happen again this year. Off-season moves. I mean, what the Chargers did, they got bigger. Becton, the big free agent signing out of the guard. Najee Harris at running back, a monster. Mike Williams at receiver, a monster after being with the Jets and the Steelers last year. Lost a couple of key guys on defense, Poona Ford, Christian Fulton, but they went into the offseason needing line help and receiver help, and they got some of that. Certainly, and you re-sign Khalil Mack, you bring in Becton, re-sign Bozeman. They're a team that they're massive in the interior. And then the guys they picked, Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. This team has 1 million running backs. And what did Garbo want to do last year? He wanted to ground and pound, but the offensive line wasn't good enough to do it. They didn't have enough healthy backs to do it. So that's kind of what hurt their offense, especially down the stretch last year. The mentality for LA hasn't changed. They want to ground and pound. They want to wear you out with the running game that sets up the defense to be fresh in the fourth quarter, sets up the Herbert to make throws downfield in the fourth quarter. But it's certainly a team that wants to out-physical you. And, Joey Bosa gone in the offseason. But this is not a team that's likely to, going to be big spenders in free agency. They haven't been big spenders in free agency. They have cap space, which means that they can make moves now as the season approaches. But certainly when it comes to downfield threats for the passing game, that's probably the biggest question mark for this team. Ladd McConkey and who. We'll see if Williams can step up. From a schedule standpoint, the AFC West faces the AFC South and the NFC East. There are 3 extra games: Miami, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, all teams that are expected to be decent or good. Tough closeout for the Chargers down the stretch. Philly, at Kansas City, at Dallas, Houston, Denver, 5 potential playoff teams in their last 5 ball games. But after week 1, man, it's pretty easy through the bye. They got KC in week 1. The 3 toughest opponents all come at home: Denver, Washington, Minnesota. And every other team that they face through their week 12 bye after Kansas City is a team lined at 500 or worse. So there's room for the Chargers to have a good start to the season, and perhaps that momentum will carry them into December when the schedule toughens up.
Guys, we've reached the halfway point of this show as we head to the NFC side of things. But a reminder, check out Teddy Cover's 2025 NFL season win report. It is up and available. It does include 17-4, 81% on his 5% big tickets over the last 25 years. So Teddy Cover's season win total report is a good one to get. It is one that I use personally in my betting. But we got the NFC West up next here, Teddy. Arizona Cardinals, first team up, 8-9 last year, 11-6 against the spread, money printers, and I got them 8-1 over under. So Arizona Cardinals, what are we thinking in the desert?
Yeah, and just to talk about the season win report for West one more moment before we talk about Arizona. Again, we're 103-52 since 2021. That's the type of track record that says, yeah, I can lock up some money betting this stuff. And obviously 17-4 with the big tickets. That report will come out Wednesday, July 2nd. You can pre-purchase it now on my page, w.buzz/TC. I would encourage you not to do that and get on board with any extended package. It comes for free if you're a long-term client. You can get an NFL season package right now. You can get a 3-month all-access package right now. The 1 month all access is a great pass. It's a great deal right now. You're getting 2 weeks for free. Buy 2 weeks, get 2 weeks free, essentially 30 days all access from WagerTalk.com. Again, visit my page, wt.buzz/TC, and sign up for this package. It's a good one, in my opinion. And my opinion's right on this. Again, you see the work I'm putting in June. You understand that the report has had this track record because I put in this type of work every year. This year hasn't changed. I expect to win. We won last year. We won with the Arizona Cardinals last year. We had Arizona over their season win total. They were aligned at 6.5 wins. They finished 8-9, coming off a 4-13 season and a 4-13 season the year before that. So they have back-to-back disaster campaigns. Last year they were better, and my clients and I cashed over tickets with the Cardinals. There's coaching continuity here. Head coach Jonathan Gannon, offensive coordinator Drew Petzing, defense coordinator Nick Rallis, all back for their third season together. We like that when the coach, the arrow's pointing upward. The coach hired the right guys as coordinators coming in. And they had a brutal schedule last year. The sixth toughest schedule in the NFL based on the numbers, my party numbers, the week the game was played. And, again, I think that's, in my opinion, valuable info. This year, aligned at 8.5 wins. Really, I'm seeing not much juice. I'm seeing a plus 100. I'm seeing it minus 120 if you shop around, depending on which way you're looking. But in that range. But they're lined right at 500. And they made some win now moves this offseason. That defense, which wasn't great last year, you bring in Josh Sweat, you bring in Dalvin Tomlinson, you bring in Akeem Davis-Gaither. All of a sudden, that's 3 meaningful veterans on defense. And I know they lost 3 out of 4 line, but Sweat makes the pass rush better. Tomlin's the defensive anchor. And there's still some, holes for this team. But again, and Sweat, of course, played with Gannon in Philadelphia. So, this defense is primed to make you have Budda Baker, you have Garrett Williams, who's become really good at the cornerback. Calais Campbell comes over from Miami. The first rounder, Walter Nolan from Mississippi at defensive tackle. The cornerback, Will Johnson with the second round pick. The edge rusher, Jordan Birch out of Oregon. So they're still young. And the defense is relying on a lot of new faces. But I would not be surprised at all if this defense makes a pretty big jump in 2025. I do still worry, Kyler Murray from a chemistry standpoint last year, everyone talked about he spent the offseason in the training facility, and everyone, he was showing the leadership that maybe he hadn't shown earlier in his career. I've continued to hear good things about Murray this past offseason. Certainly the arrow pointed upward for him, perhaps. A guy who's kind of fallen into a little anonymity after making some noise early on. And I do worry about it's not a team that's loaded with receivers. Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, and question marks. And again, Wilson, Harrison Jr., they'd be great in a loaded core, but if they're the top 2 guys, that's a question. And Harrison last year, was good rookie season, but not, we couldn't carry the offense. Schedule-wise, NFC West versus AFC South and NFC South. Again, 2 of the weakest divisions out there. There are 3 extra games. Green Bay, Dallas, Cincinnati, nothing easy there. Look at the start. They got New Orleans, Carolina, a San Francisco team that has question marks, Seattle team that's not loaded, Tennessee, Indy, their first 6 games. Arizona could be one of these surprise teams we're talking about mid-October. After the bye, though, week 8, look at their road games. At Dallas, at Seattle, at Tampa, at Houston, at Cincy, at the Rams. None of them are easy. So Arizona was a real good road team last year, better on the road than they were at home, certainly from a point spread standpoint. They will be road underdogs repeatedly down the stretch this year and have a chance to see if they can work that same magic on the highway in 2025.
Next team up, the team that finished atop the NFC West standings, the LA Rams here, 10-7 straight up, 9-8 against the spread, slight under trenders, 8-9 towards the under. So we got the Rams, winners of the West last year. What are we thinking in 2025, DC?
Yeah, Rams, there's a split line on the Rams. You can find them at 9.5 and lay some juice. You can find them at 10 at more like minus 110. With a win total by the way, this is a kind of an important factor to note. When you talk about locking up your money for an extended period of time, I generally would rather lay a little bit of juice and give myself a number to win on. So I would rather take 9.5 with juice and let me win on 10 than not lay the juice, play the 10 at even money or minus 110 and push on that. I'm much more likely to try to get, if I get a win number versus if I get a push number. So it's a difference between 9.5 and 10 than it would be at 9 versus 9.5. Does that make sense? I think it does. I hope I made that point appropriately. But the bottom line is I want my win number to actually win. So they get to 10. I'd rather, and again, if you want to play this out, a lot of the books are having alternative win numbers, win totals, and you can get a nice payback if you ask a team to win a game or 2 or 3 more than their win total. And I wouldn't argue with small bets on those type of wagers. But for this type of scenario where you have a choice, I can ask them 9.5 with juice, or I can ask them 10 without juice. 50 cents equates to about half a win when it comes to juice. But if the 50 cents is equal, I'll always take the 9.5 and get the win at 10, then the push at 10 without laying the juice. That's my 2 cents. LA Rams last year, 10-7. Year before, 10-7. Year before, 5-12. The year before, 12-5. The year before, 10-6. They've gone over their win total for the last 5 years. The only one the year they didn't was the year after they won the Super Bowl when everyone got hurt. Sean McVay, 9th season on the job. Offensive coordinator Matt LaFleur, 3rd season. Defensive coordinator Chris Shula back for his 2nd season, so there is continuity. Last year, 2 things that were positives. They did have a winning record, +3 net in one-score games, 11 one-score games for the Rams last year. Lots of tight games that came down to the wire, and they were much healthier than the average team a year ago as well. They did some changes when it comes to receiving core. Cooper Kupp, bye-bye. Demarcus Robinson, bye-bye. Devontae Adams comes in. Poona Ford comes in at defensive tackle. They lose Bobby Brown. So free agency, it felt like they just replaced the guys that they lost. The goal in free agency, upgrade wide receivers, give the defensive line some credit. But again, this is a team that 10 of their 12 highest paid players are on offense. All right. So really, they haven't spent a lot of money on defense. And they've been able to not spend a lot of money on defense. They've drafted very well and put a lot of draft resources in that regard. But they lost multiple starters along the front 7. Michael Hawk, Christian Roseboom, Bobby Brown. I wonder if they're still going to make moves, because it feels to me like their defense is a little bit light, and they haven't put a lot of resources in that regard. They restructured Matthew Stafford's contract. I talked about the signings, but most of what they did this offseason was restructuring and re-signing the guys that they had. Didn't have a first-round pick. They got Terrence Ferguson, the tight end out of Oregon, with their 2nd rounder, the edge rusher, Josiah Stewart out of Michigan with the 3rd rounder. It's not an impactful draft, in my opinion. So didn't have an impactful free agency, didn't have an impactful draft. They do have a veteran quarterback who's got to win now. It's not like this team's playing for the future with Stafford at QB. How many years does Stafford have left? Not much. They do have some real advantages when it comes to schedule-wise. Top 5 in net rest this year. NFC West, again, they face AFC South and NFC South. They got Houston, Tennessee, and Indy in the first 4 weeks. They got a chance for a hot start. But after Thanksgiving, play 4 out of 5 on the road. The only home game is Detroit. That's not going to be an easy stretch. There are 3 extra games. Philly, Baltimore, Detroit. Ouch. That's what a first place schedule will do for you. No easy task in that regard for LA. So even though they're top 5 in net rest advantage, their schedule itself, and even though, again, they play AFC South and NFC South, not the 2 toughest divisions, there are still plenty of issues with LA when it comes to schedule, both in their extra games and in terms of the late season stretch, that give me some concern about a team that's been consistently good throughout the McVay era.
We got next team up, finishing a bottom of the NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers, 6-11 straight up, just 5-12 against the spread. Money burners here, TC. They were over trenders, but what are we thinking here for the 49ers? Can they bounce back off of a tough season?
Yeah, so San Fran, the market certainly think they will. Team lined at 10/10.5. 10.5 at plus money, but there's still 10s out there right now. And again, last year they were lined at 11.5 wins and finished 6-11. 5.5 wins below their season total. But before that, 12-5, 13-4, 10-7. They had the 6-10 year after the Super Bowl loss, 13-3. So they've, been whatever. This has been an elite franchise for much of the John Lynch era, certainly since Brock Purdy came on board. Kyle Shanahan, in his 9th season on the job, he calls his own plays, offense coordinator. Robert Saleh, the Jets' former head coach, he was defense coordinator here before he got the Jets coaching job. I considered him an upgrade at defense coordinator, and certainly someone who the 49ers are relying on in terms of divining up some better schemes than they had last year when a lot of things went wrong. And what went wrong in last year? Look, they were -10 in turnovers. All right. Bad. 2-5 in one-score games. Bad. Bottom 5 in health. Lots of different players had to get in the lineup for San Fran last year. And based on my numbers, the week the game was played, second hardest schedule in the NFL. So when you're -10 turnovers, you're -3 in one-score games, you're bottom 5 in health. I know you face the second hardest schedule in the league based on my numbers. Of course, you're going to have a disappointing campaign, and they did. The question is, can they bounce back? Off-season moves. And again, the main objective this offseason was clear the books of a bunch of bad contracts, And basically, they let all their key free agents go. Deebo Samuel got, released. Jason Hargrave got released. Malik Collins and Leonard Floyd. I mean, huge names gone for. And when we look, you think about who they've lost the last couple of seasons. Mike McClinchy, Chase Young, Eric Armstead, Aaron Banks, Drake Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, Javarius Ward, Jalen Moore, Hargrave, Samuel. Yeah, some got old. Yeah, some weren't as good. Some got hurt. But that's a boatload of talent for any team to lose in the midst of their Super Bowl window. That being said, you think about it, that was kind of always the plan from when they drafted. Remember, Trey Lance was the guy and Purdy was the afterthought. But they were going to have to pay Lance this past year. It was the same. So the thought process, even though Purdy got the money and not Lance got the money, they've been planning for this. This is a good organization in that regard. And I'm going to call them the opposite of New Orleans. New Orleans is where they are right now, and they're going to be this way for another couple of years because every year when it came to salary cap issue, they just kicked the can down the road, restructure the veterans, kick the can down the road. And now, you have huge salary cap implications and the Niners didn't do that. The Niners this last offseason, they're like, no, we ain't kicking no can. We're going to deal with it now. And that's what they've done. So there are a lot of big names that are gone that may not be replaced by names that are every bit as big. There's certainly, when you talk about question marks, and again, I love their draft, even though I love that they drafted to need top 5 players on the defense side of the football. Michael Williams from Georgia, the number 1 pick, the defensive tackle Collins out of Texas, the 2nd pick, Nick Martin, Upton Stout. They really gave themselves a nice talent infusion on the defense side of the football, but make no mistake about it. They lost 3 out of the 4 starters on the defensive line. That's an area of question coming into the season. And of course, is Brock Purdy going to be able to live up to that $265 million contract, even though his receiving core maybe not as talented as it's been in years past. When it comes to this year's schedule, top 5 in net rest advantage. That's a bonus for San Francisco. They'll be rested. Their opponents are the ones in the short weeks, far more than the 49ers. They face the AFC South and the NFC South, 2 of the weaker divisions. San Fran's 3 extra games. The Giants, the Bears, and the Browns. 2 of those 3 teams are going to be 2 of the worst teams in the league this year. They do have 3 sets of back-to-back road games the first 9 weeks of the season. They do have a late week 14 bye. But look at the schedule down the stretch. If this is a 500 team midway through the season, they got Carolina, Cleveland, Tennessee, Indy, Chicago, and Seattle, 4 of them at home, the last 6 ball games. San Fran, a team that certainly has a chance, if things start out not as good as expected, they get a chance to make a late season run and still make the playoffs. And again, a team that won, was a last place team a year ago and finished 6-11. The line 10.5 wins this year. The markets expect an immediate turnaround, bounce back season for a franchise that's been very, very good over the better part of the last decade.
On the NFL Opening Line Report Preview Edition, a reminder, check out Teddy Cover's 2025 NFL season win total report, 103-52. That's 66% winners. We got 17-4, 81% on the 5% big tickets. So check that out, season win total report from Teddy Covers. Last team we're talking here, Teddy, Seattle Seahawks, 10-7 straight up, but just 6-11 against the spread. Money burners slightly over trenders at 9-8 over under. We got a team that finished second here at 10-7, Seahawks. Last team we're talking.
Yeah, just to give you guys something actionable for today. Obviously, it's Monday. It's Monday morning here in Las Vegas, bright and early. Not even 9 a.m. yet. But the NBA playoffs have been fantastic, and I continue to win in the finals. 4-1 in the finals last year, 3-1 in the finals this year, 20-9 with the last 29 NBA releases. I am in play for Game 5 tonight. You can check that out again on my page, wt.buzz/TC. The NBA has been good for the clients. It's been good for the bankroll throughout the postseason, and really for the last 4 years, the NBA is up well over 200 units for the clients and I. So check out the homepage, wt.buzz/TC, and get on board for tonight or any all-access pass that will get you every play, every day, in every sport. Seattle, this is a team that has some split numbers. They're 8.5 juice to the under. They're 7.5 juice to the over with the Seabags. So there's certainly a team that if you shop around, you can find different numbers with. Right now, I'm not convinced that'll be there a month from now. Usually the markets start to converge in that sense. Certainly by this August, we're going to see Seattle priced uniformly, far more uniformly than they are right now. Mike McDonald, his second year as a head coach, brought in a new offense coordinator, Clint Kubiak. The DC, Aiden Durde, is back for his second season. This team went aligned to 7.5 wins last year. They went 10-7. Lined at 8.5 wins the year before. They went 9-8. Lined at 6 wins the year before. They went 9-8 as well. So 3 straight years they've gone over their win total. In fact, 5 of the last 6 years they've gone over their win total. So Seattle has been relatively profitable for their backers in that regard. You liked it last year when I did last week, Drew, when I did a deep dive on Steve Wilkes as a coordinator that I had questions about. Clint Kubiak is a guy that I have questions about. All right, remember. So Kubiak, daddy was a coach. He was a fortunate son. Became an offensive assistant under his dad in 2016. Then he became the quarterback coach after Bill Musgrave got promoted to offensive coordinator when there were issues there. And then he went to Minnesota and became offensive coordinator there, replacing his dad. And then he went back to Denver and he became the quarterback's coach under Nathaniel Hackett. And then Kubiak got the chance to call plays in Denver. And then he was in San Fran as their passing game coordinator in 2023. And the Saints hired him as OC in 2024, replacing Pete Carmichael. So he's kind of not lasting long anywhere he's been. And it feels like I've got questions about Kubiak's ability to be an elite play caller for Seattle this year. Although McDonald's a mind that I respect, we'll see if Kubiak is a guy that can live up to those expectations. But this is a team that went through some big offseason changes. Obviously, you take Geno, bye-bye, DK Metcalf, bye-bye, Tyler Lockett, bye-bye. And you bring in Sam Darnold, who had a resurgent season last year behind an elite offensive line and a great coaching staff. Cooper Kupp comes in from LA. DeMarcus Lawrence comes in as a defensive difference maker. You re-sign Ernest Jones, you re-sign Jaron Reed. But it's not like they had a ton of money in the offseason. In the draft, the offensive guard out of North Dakota State, Zabel, in the first round. Not a sexy draft. Safety, tight end, second round picks. Jalen Milroe goes in the third round. If Darnold has problems, maybe Milroe gets the opportunity this season. But it feels like there's big changes for a team that had been veteran. Again, you feel like that's going to happen with the second-year head coach, and he's going to get his guys in. Tomlinson gone and replaced by Zabel on the defensive line. But from an offensive line standpoint, this team got question marks everywhere. I mean, they really do. A bunch of oft-injured guys, a bunch of guys who, later round draft choices. I'm just looking at all these names. I'm not going to run through all the names. They've got question marks at multiple offensive line positions right now. And that's not what I want with Darnold coming here for Seattle. I'm not bullish on the Seahawks in 2025. I'm really not. And they do have a top 5 net rest advantage. So they're getting teams that are playing on short weeks, and they're not. NFC West versus AFC South and NFC South. 3 extras, none of them are easy. Pittsburgh, Washington, Minnesota. And for a relatively easy schedule, they get a tough start. So San Fran, at Pitt, New Orleans easy. At Arizona, Tampa, at Jacksonville, long trip. Houston, at Washington, Arizona, and the Rams, at the Rams in the first 10 games of the season. I would not be surprised they get off to a relatively slow start. That being said, they get Tennessee, Indy, and Carolina all down the stretch. A chance for a better finish than the start to the season. But Seattle, when it comes to 2025, they're shortlisted as a team I'm looking to play under their win total, not a team that I'm excited about when it comes to their value in the upcoming campaign.
Makes sense, Teddy. And I know we're up against it time-wise, but we were talking about kind of home road, advantages and not being the same as they have, years ago, particularly in the NFL. I am seeing here something that kind of jumped out at me is the Seahawks. I think a lot of people would regard as, home field advantage being one of, if not the highest in the NFL. But just last season, 3-6 at home, 7-1 on the road. Do you think that's a trend that could kind of keep going in the future?
Potentially. And again, they went 5-3 at home the year before, 5-4 at home the year before that. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking, the less you factor in home field, I think the more successful you'll be. And as a handicapper. And one of the things that the guys that don't know what to say is, they're just trying to, I'll make a pick. Oh, they're going back home. Oh, they're at home this week. Oh, at home. Anytime you hear a freaking analyst say those words, it means they don't know anything about handicapping because the home field is not, it's always priced in. And it's not that big of a deal. It's not like teams don't win on the road. They win on the road every year in the NFL. They'll win on the road this year in the NFL. So do I expect the Seahawks to be awful at home? If they're a bad team, they're going to be a bad team at home and on the road. The worst teams, you love to bet against them at home because the crowd boos. There's no home field edge at all. And the opponents come in expecting to win those games. I love betting against the bottom feeders at home. And you're not laying an extra touchdown to do it or an extra 6 points to do it. So I don't know if Seattle's a bottom feeder. I don't see them at the, but that a lot of that depends on Sam Darnold and the very dicey offensive line in front of him. Very dicey.
I'm picking up what you're laying down there, TC. Guys, a reminder, check out the NFL season win total report with Teddy. Covers 66% winners over the last 25 years and, of course, over 80% on the 5%. Teddy, any final thoughts here before we shut it down?
Yeah, so I just want to ask you guys one more time. If you like this, hit that like button. Give us a comment in the comment section. Drew and I will be in there. We'll respond. You get to interact. I know we're doing the show live, but ask us questions. It's fine. Tell me what I'm wrong about. It's okay. Nobody gets mad. And of course, subscribe to the channel, WT.buzz. Subscribe to the channel, more than 200,000 you've done so. Visit the web page, the website, WagerTalk.com. The Odds Logic live odds screen. We haven't talked about that. oddslogic.com/Teddy. Gets you a free 7-day all access trial. Check it out. Again, oddslogic.com/Teddy. And that's it, man. Comment below. Thank you. Have a great day. Go about your business. We've done our work. Cheers.
All right, Teddy. Great show, guys. Comment below. Any questions? Your picks as well. Any analysis? We'll be in there chiming it up with you.
And I said I'm done. Of course, come back next Monday. Next Monday, we're doing the Norths, AFC North, NFC North. Lots of good teams, lots of playoff contenders in both of those divisions. I'm excited to talk about them. 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday morning, bright and early. We'll do it again next Monday and the Monday after as well. And if you like this type of analysis, tell your friends. We're really looking to grow this show in 2025, and you guys can help us. So thank you.
For Teddy Covers, I'm Drew Martin. Huge shout out to John behind the scenes running the show, guys. So smash that like button, comment below, cash those tickets. We'll be back next week. Thanks for tuning in.